16, I was diagnosed with a rare condition and my life was changed forever. Allow me to take you back to who I was before. I was born fighting for breath and was christened in a hurry. I was named after my dad's sister who died as a baby. I had something called hyaline membrane syndrome, which meant that my lungs were not fully developed. I went on to develop severe asthma as a child, which apparently didn't stop me laughing myself into hysterics and being barely able to catch my breath. I've always been a fighter, a rebel, or some would say stubborn. Growing up, I was not one of those people who knew what they wanted to do in life. I was interested in very many different things, like art, photography, literature, sports, food, travel. I decided to go to college and study English and French. When I finished, I moved to Canada for a few years. And when I came back, I studied advertising and marketing. And in my mid-20s, I went back to college again. Time passed by and I met my husband and we had 2 beautiful children. Around 2011, when our son was about 7 months old and our daughter about 3, I was home alone with them and I asked her to get me a nappy. But when I went to say the word nappy, the word banana came out. I thought it was strange and I put it down to being home alone and busy with 2 small kids. I started to notice some changes in my body. I struggled doing everyday tasks like pushing a buggy and cycling a bike. I lost weight and my skin started to change colour. I experimented with different foundations and then I went on to develop severe migraines and finally I started to lose the power all down my right side. I remember one particular incident when I was standing in the classroom and I wanted to say something to the kids, but the words just wouldn't come out. My hands were trembling and my mouth just felt thick. I left the class that day and went straight to a stroke unit, but nothing was detected. I was in and out of doctors' surgeries and specialists, but no one could tell me what the problem was. I felt like I was losing my mind. I decided to take some time off and I went to see a psychotherapist who was amazing. She made me feel rock solid. I decided to try to go back to work and everything was well initially until another worrying incident. I was in the staff room and I poured myself a cup of tea and I added some milk, which is strange because I don't drink tea with milk. I emptied it out and I repeated the same thing about 4 more times and I knew that something was very wrong. During this period, I was going for scans on a regular basis due to the numbness and the chronic headaches. After one such scan, I got a call from my doctor telling me to go straight to Beaumont Hospital. I had moya moya. Moya moya is a rare disease that blocks the flow of oxygen to the brain, and I had 50% blockages. I was relieved to have a diagnosis, but then they told me that it's degenerative and that the only treatment was brain surgery. I didn't leave the hospital that day. I spent a very surreal week trying to get my head around what was about to happen. Unfortunately, the surgery did not quite go according to plan, and it ended up taking 9 hours, during which I suffered a major stroke. Ultimately, it was successful, but when I woke up, which I was relieved to do, I was going to get to see my family and my kids, and I was going to get to live. However, I couldn't speak. All I could do was to smile to reassure my friends and family that it was still me, that everything was okay. When you have brain surgery, it's like they take your brain, shake it up, and give it back to you in a different order with pieces missing. One day the kids came in to see me, and my son, who was around 3 at the time, and who was absolutely obsessed with maths, asked me, "Mum, what's 1-on-1?" And I just didn't recognise the concept. I didn't understand what he was talking about. I didn't even know what the letter A was. When I was in hospital, a friend of mine brought me in a fashion magazine, and I remember thinking that it all just looked like pictures. When I came home, I hired a private tutor while I was waiting to access the services. We started with the alphabet, and during one of the lessons she said to me, "If you don't learn to read and write within 6 months, you never will." I've never liked the expression, "everything happens for a reason." When I heard her words, I had a visceral reaction. Don't let anyone ever tell you what you can or cannot do. My years of teaching were all about encouraging people and helping them to reach their full potential. My journey to learn to read and write took 2.5 years, and it's one of the hardest things I have ever done. When I say I had to learn to read and write again, this is so much more than books and pencil. I couldn't read the number on my local bus. I couldn't cook. I couldn't recognise coins to pay in a shop, to read a menu, and the list went on and on. My mum was a force of nature at this time, and she didn't stop until she got me back reading and writing. I found myself dependent on others for so many different things, and this was alien to me. I'd always been a fiercely independent person. When I was in 5th class, I went down to the Gaeltacht down in the west of Ireland to live with a family for 3 months to improve my Irish. When I finished my Leaving Cert, I moved to Paris to study for 6 months. And then when I finished college, I moved to Canada by myself for a couple of years. Part of having a disability is having to ask for help much more than you would like. But if you don't ask, you don't get. When I was recovering in hospital, I had a lot of time to think, and I knew pretty much instantly that I was never going back teaching, that this was my chance to do something creative, something that I loved, something for me. Before leaving therapy, I underwent 3 weeks of neurological testing. This made it very clear to me which parts of my brain were broken and which were not. I found this devastating, and it took me a couple of weeks to recover from the shock of seeing it in black and white. For me, knowledge is power, and looking back, this was a key and crucial moment. I chose to look very carefully at my strengths and weaknesses to help me make an informed decision about my next best steps. I wanted to live. I wanted to have a purpose. Slowly but surely, I made my way back into society. I went back and studied mindfulness, even though I couldn't read my notes. And then I asked my sister to help me write a letter of application to a not-for-profit organisation to take me on as a personal stylist. They said yes, and a new and exciting chapter of my life began. I still volunteer with them, and I absolutely loved seeing their confidence grow and opportunities for opening up for them. Within about 6 months, I decided that I wanted to start my own personal styling business. And I'm thankful to say that it's now in its 7th year, and I'm lucky to say that I absolutely love what I do. I'm still coming to terms with everything that I have lost, but I've also gained a lot. We can't go backwards, only forwards, and nothing we do in life is a waste of time, and it shapes us and becomes a part of who we are. My new motto is, life is for living. I can't remember my motto. And we should not let anything stand in our way. Many thanks.